Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Process, where we get real, raw, and grounded. You know me by now as your host, El Marco Antonio Alvarez, and also with my fellow co-host, Mr. Wesley Mosier. As you see, we have a special guest today, and I'm going to hand it over to Wesley to make the introduction.
Yes, so Jordan is a friend of mine from about 2 or 3 years ago. What was it? When did you start UCM? Was it back in
Yeah, it was like
2021?
it's like 3 years ago, 2021,
Yeah,
kind of
so it
like
was
that
a few
January.
years ago, and I got to meet Jordan. He was a really cool kid. We were both pretty young, and he started like just before me in sales, and he was kind of picking up some momentum. And I think you were actually on one of my first podcasts of sorts that I did for a while there.
Yeah,
And
I
use
remember
that
that.
to network into certain offers and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and back then you were a killer, and now you're, still a killer. Now you're obviously got more life experience. You're married now, I think you said. You got a kid on the way and things like that. And we were reflecting
Yeah,
before we started recording, like, what do you think was the most important factor for you that like differentiated you from
mhm.
everybody else back then when you were obviously the youngest guy and didn't have a lot of experience, but you were building that momentum? What do you think made you stick out the most, would you say?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that intro. I'm not that cool, but when I came into the high ticket space about 3 years ago, um, I had a, I knew I wanted to make more money and have more time. So did other thousands of people when they came in, right? And I came to kind of learn. And this took me longer than it should have, but 6, 12 months in, uh, what kind of really separated the people who were the individuals that really got where they wanted to be, like the jobs, the offers, the income, the opportunities, right? Compared to those that like didn't, which were still, lack of a better term, still trying to in the rat race, trying to figure things out. What I figured kind of figured out, which it was not only their mindset, of course, but it was like their strategies. They understood exactly where they wanted to be and why. Most people understand they want to make more money, but they don't understand what that's actually going to allow them to do. They don't understand the real drivers behind like what they do and what happens if they don't do anything, right? Which creates a lot of urgency to do something. And I've noticed those, and this is what I had to learn to apply is go, hey, there's others out there who've done exactly what I've done. So while it's great to network with a lot of other people that are at my level, let me do what I can to put myself in opportunities that are going to allow me to network with people who are at a higher level, such as myself, right? But for example, if I'm hopping into a setter role, right, I'm not networking with the other setters. I'm doing everything I can to network with the closers, the people that are at the income I want to surround myself in those environments, learn from them, adapt that, right? And so when you begin to, I guess, pick up on their strategies and the way they think, there's a great quote I heard out there from somebody, I forgot who it was, but they had said, what separates Elon Musk from like you or I is he just simply knows something and is doing something we're not.
Mhm.
Same thing with the top 1% in any industry. They have a different belief system, different perspective, different set of skills. They're not superheroes. They know something or doing something you're not. So I think as long as you're always just striving to put yourself in the best position, so you're learning that and you're willing to invest in yourself, right, to kind of get where you want to be at. And I think that from my perspective, that's kind of what helped me personally is be able to kind of get to the jobs I wanted to, meet the people I needed to, and then eventually network and come into seventh level, Jeremy Minor, which had a really small team at the time, and kind of work my way up from the bottom, right? Networking. Um, but yeah, if I guess I was to add one more note on that, um, strategy is really important, but the right strategy. When I was trying to find like a job, for example, when I came into the high ticket space, I would, there's nothing wrong with it, but I would go into a lot of like job listings, right? People who are posting job listings, trying to find something to hop onto. I was kind of in there with the rest of the fishes and lambs going, I'm interested, right? And there was kind of came to a point one day where I was like, hold on, the guys that are at where they want to be at, I don't see them in the job listings. They're doing something differently. being in the environment now, I understand a lot of those closer roles that a lot of people want to get to when they come into the high ticket space. They're not posting job listings. They're usually asking the other closers they already have on their team, hey, do you guys know anybody in your network? So the right strategy to help you network with people who are exactly where you want to be. And when you know why you want to be there and what happens if you don't, and you wake up every single day with that sense of urgency, you're going to do like whatever it takes, right? To network, to meet with people, message them, hop into something to build your skills. I think that's what helped me at a, you could say, early stage, is just understanding, hey, I need to network with the right people, right? Kind of like UCM, being able to network with, you guys, Jay Daniel, Hunter, and just surrounding myself with people that had uh, they just had a better perspective than I did. I like to think of an island, right? It's like there's a lot of people on an island. Every way you look, there's just water. Everybody wants to get off the island though. The only trouble is, like with our current perspective, the decisions that we make have brought us to where we're at. But the trouble with that is if we only ever keep making decisions based off of like where we've been at our whole lives and what we've learned, we'll only ever stay where we're at. So in order to get off the island, we have to get a new perspective, right? We have to be able to be on top of like a mountain. So we can see the jungle, we can see the water, we can see the desert. We have a new perspective now, right? The issue
So
is
can
three.
Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I was gonna say just the three things, and if I was to kind of break it down into steps for somebody, is there's three things you have to do to get off the island, right? One is you have to believe the mountain is actually out there. Believe your goals and where you want to be is actually possible. You see other people doing it, okay, it's absolutely possible. Secondly, again, is you have to have the right strategy. How do you get the right strategy? You do what the other people did to get there. How do you do that? You network with them. You chat with them, you talk with them, right? You invest in the right strategies, you make the right decisions. Like somebody who's already where you're at, like is the kind of decisions they would make. And then lastly is you have to just start swimming, right? Which is the scariest part because the reality is you could very well drown. There's no guarantees in life. The only two guarantees are death and taxes. That's about it.
I would say actually death, because taxes is a whole separate option as well.
Well, yeah,
You
another
you
time for another podcast.
Well, I was gonna
yeah.
say you can live a different way. But what I'm curious about is
Yeah.
I wanna focus on your why. And well, first let me back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
How does someone get clear on their why? I just want to get your perspective on that.
It's understanding their like when I chat with a lot of clients at 7th level, the best way I like to break it down is what is your definition of success? Most people will say it's money, it's their destination, it's where they want to be. That's what they view as success. The trouble with that is every single day you're going to wake up feeling unsuccessful because you're not at your destination. You have to be able to put yourself in a position where you can be successful every single day and
How
know
do you
you're
define
headed towards a
success?
specific. It's a great question, right? The way you define success is exactly who you have to be where you want to be. I'll give you an example, right? If I know I want to be the best possible father for my family, my future family, for my wife, right? I want to be able to more than support them. I know that sort of house. I know the material things I want to be able to provide for them, but I know the sort of person I want to be. What I have to be able to do is get crystal clear on that sort of individual, the sorts of beliefs he has, the sorts of characteristics, traits that he has, Jordan 2.0, also what he's let go of that's brought him there. And then I have to wake up every single day, double down on I'm going to be that version of myself. I'm going to make the sorts of decisions that he makes. And when you do that, you're stepping into success because those other things like income, money, right, where you want to be, those are just lagging indicators of the decisions that you've made that have brought you there. So the way I would define success is who you're showing up as, how you're measuring yourself to who you want to be every single day, every minute of the day, because you can actually track that.
Yeah. So I like how you brought that up because we're talking about future self, talking about creating this future identity and connecting with that
Yeah.
and taking the steps necessary to get you closer to that version of yourself. So you're constantly
Mhm.
evolving. One of the biggest issues that happens with people is that, and we've all succumbed to this, some more than others, is comparisonitis.
Mhm.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm.
So how do you mitigate against that?
Mhm. The only person you should compare yourself to, um, and this is my perspective and what I've come to learn. Don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to the person you want to be, right? Because then otherwise what happens is you don't know who you want to be
Mm,
when you compare yourself to other people. But when you know who you want to be, it's a healthy challenge now. There's a healthy gap there that needs to happen. And not on a yearly basis, where on January 1st, I'm going to decide to be a better person, but it happens on July 9th, July 10th, July 11th, and I can actually look at the end of the day and compare myself to that version of myself I know I need to be, the sorts of skills that he has, sorts of decisions that he has, and that I do at least everything in my power to move forward towards that, right?
So let
Because
me
then when you make those steps, and that's how I define success is I did everything in my power. So when I go to sleep at night, I know I'm in the best possible position to get where I want to be for me and my family.
you did your best. You did what was in your control. Um,
Yeah.
so let me push back a little bit on it because I struggle with these thoughts, and I'm sure other people do. Is what do you think? Like when you arrived at your, because I think the why is like the easiest solution to diagnose, but it's the hardest problem to actually solve practically for people. Like it's really hard to have a why that sustains over time, in spite of like hopelessness and all, just everything that goes along with
Hmm.
trying to accomplish something great. It's easy to give up or to change your why or whatever. So when you
Yeah.
reached that part, because you just said like success is becoming the best version of me or the thing that I want to become. Like when you hit that first pinnacle in sales or whatever, right? When you had that first offer, you got that first 10K month or that first six-figure year or whatever the hell it was, right?
Hmm.
Like, did you feel measurably different, or was it just kind of like how did you feel in that moment when you hit that?
I always thought it was going to be like this big, wow, it's incredible, I'm sure it was some of that, but it was more so, I think when I first saw my bank account, like the biggest check I had kind of ever gotten after a month. Um, and it's like I've always wanted to hit like one of those like 10K months when I came into the high ticket space. To be completely frank, it wasn't like an overwhelming emotion. It was just kind of like, yeah, it just makes sense based on the decisions I've been making every single day. What really separates the guys who are like making 20, 30K a month, there's obviously a lot of different factors, you know, job opportunity, their skill level. But what really separates a lot of those guys that are they're making like, 20, 30K compared to the guy who's still trying to get to like 2, 3, 4K is again, he's thinking differently. He's in perspective, different decisions he makes. So when you step into that every day, it's like when you begin to see the results of that, right? From like the fruits of your labor, the skills, the decisions you've been making, it was more of like a, oh yeah, that just makes sense kind of feeling, right? It was definitely great, but it was kind of like, yeah, I've already kind of been like envisioning this like every single day for like the past like 3 months,
Yeah,
right? It was like not
it was
like a
just who you
big,
were. You just manifested, whatever you script you were running in your head, I guess.
yeah, and I,
Is,
I
is
would
that
even almost I would even almost say that's what you want to have, is because if you do get that like, wow, I can't believe this is incredible. I'm so happy I got here. And you don't know what the next step is, right? You run the risk of going, this is a fluke. I'm scared to lose it.
yeah. So
What's
let
going to
me let
happen if
me
I go the other way? Right. But
let,
yeah,
let me
go ahead.
push back even deeper then, because this is where it gets kind of nutso to me, is like the delusional optimism that people talk about, like this radical, it's almost like
Yeah.
delusional how optimistic you have to be successful. Because like I understand the motive for guys who haven't hit the target yet to have that compelling why that's like emotional and it's just like thinking about it makes you tear up
Mhm.
and you're like, dude, I'm gonna do this, and you're like throwing a Hail Mary at the wall to get there. But when you get there, it's like what you just said. It's like, oh yeah, just another day. So it's like the reward for the effort doesn't match up, because like the compelling why to get you there was like you're giving your all, like it's do or die. And then when you get there, it's kind of just like, oh yeah, whatever. So how do you feel like your why stayed the same at once you got to your first pinnacle? Like, I hope I'm making sense right now, but like, do you feel like when you got
Yeah.
to that first pinnacle, did your why change to get to the next thing, or did you have a different realization, or did you have like an existential crisis where you're like, wait a second, maybe I've been chasing darts going into the abyss, you know, for no reason, or if that
That's a
makes
good
sense, like
question. Yeah, it's a good question. Again, that's why I would say your gap should be who you want to be. Because for me, it wasn't like I hit the why. The income was just a lagging indicator of knowing I was on the path I needed to become the person I wanted to be. Right. So I think so many people get so focused on just the income, which is great, what it'll allow you to do. Right. But what you should focus on, again, is the individual you want to be. Because then I think like your question, just to clarify, is like what happens when you reach that point, right? And you've kind of hit your why. How do you kind of move forward move forward from there? Is that the question, or is it like
Well, let
it's
me,
that, but
I was going to say, like, if I may
sorry, yeah.
interject, because I think
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is this is about, it's about the journey, not destination, right?
It's about the
Because
journey. Yeah.
when you hit that goal, it's just part of the process that you laid out. It is just a natural consequence of what you're putting in place as far as personal systems, personal actions, right? And
Hmm.
that is being fueled by your why. And so across the board, when you notice successful individuals, success, of course, I'm putting that in air quotes because that it can
Hmm.
be defined by various factors. It could be an outcome goal, it could be whatever it is, right? A fitness goal, whatever type of thing that you're
Yeah.
aiming for.
Hmm.
If you're not working on those, essentially, what is it? Daily habits,
Hmm.
right? So you mentioned, you hit that goal and you're like, well, yeah, of course I hit that goal because I XYZ'd
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
And that's the same thing with anybody, whether it's a positive goal or a negative goal. So for example, if someone ends
Mm.
up in rehab, it's like, well, let's reverse engineer. How'd you end up in
Yeah.
rehab?
Of course,
And it's like, well, I got some
we've been doing.
self-esteem
Yeah.
issues, and I just figured I'd mask it with some drugs and alcohol, and then that spiraled out of control, and now I'm in
Yep.
rehab. It's like, okay, cool. So it's like
Yeah.
the inverse, right? You got these success principles, and then you got the inverse of anti-success, where it's like, okay,
Mm.
reverse engineer that and just point it in the other way.
Yeah. Exactly right. Well, it's like the overweight person is only overweight because they've made decisions like an overweight person has.
Right.
The individual who's fit and where they want to be at, they probably didn't wake up one day and went, "Oh my gosh, I finally have six-pack abs."
Right. It
It was
doesn't
just like,
happen
"Oh,
by
oh,
accident. Right. Yeah.
oh
It's
yeah."
not, it doesn't happen by accident. So it sounds like there's been a lot of deliberate action that you've taken,
Mhm.
deliberate planning in order to get to the place that you've gotten to. Um, Here, I'm curious about this. I'm curious about this, like as far as habits and daily habits and things like that. Like, a typical day for you. Like, what does that look like? Like, you get like, yeah, I'm like going sleep, exercise, things like that.
Yeah, so I used to wake up at like 7 a.m. and go to the gym immediately and be really hardcore on my routines. So maybe this is a little counterintuitive, right? But I became very religious about my routines for a while. I actually kind of stopped doing that. I noticed a lot of people in the industry, they would focus they would focus more on like their routines than actually like money making activities
Mhm.
if like their income was their target. So instead of like waking up at the gym, making sure I do it for an hour and I drink this tea and I do this, I was like, yeah, honestly, I got to the point where I was like, I don't need to do that. I just need to wake up and go to my appointment, have my block where I'm working on what I know I need to get better at. And then one thing I do make sure I do though in the mornings is I at least realign myself, right? I personally I'm a Christian, so I'll pray. That's where it's easier for me because I have a center. I have a mentor every single day to go to. I have a center of like a model human being I want to be, which is Jesus Christ. his characteristic traits, which is just as important. Most people don't know who they want to be or why because they have nobody to look to.
Mhm.
It's not always their fault, but sadly it is their problem. So you need to find that model. I always point him towards Jesus if I can, because he's like the perfect person, right? Like every single way. So realign myself, because then now I can step into the rest of the day making the decisions like the version of myself I know I want to be. And
Sure.
really that's it. I just keep it that simple. I go on through my work day. And I just use every opportunity I can back in my mind. How is this helping me grow, or how is this helping somebody else grow? Um, I've just noticed it's come to be a little bit silly. I've seen a lot of people now over the past couple of years. They got to do their 4 or 5 different things before they even start their day, just before they start networking with people, right? And all power to, everybody's different. All power to those who, if they want to do like a 2-hour mindset session, that's totally fine. Meditation. Just for me, like personally, just realigning myself in the morning, because then the rest of the day, um, it just falls in alignment with who I want to be, and I just naturally make the decisions of the sort of person I want to be. Sort of like someone, again, I sold in the fitness space for a while, but the fit person, when they were on their journey, they were just making decisions every single day, like a
Yeah.
fit person would, from their diet to their meal to the way they think, right? So, one little habit, I guess one more note on that kind of helped me is just making sure I plan my week, and I
Mhm.
have what's called tangible or intangibles. What is something I can get done and implement and do immediately this week that's going to give me XYZ result for sure? And then an intangible are what are those 1 to 2 things I need to work on that I know maybe not this week or next week, but over the next few weeks or few months are going to get me better results. I'll give you an example. Tangible is like, um, I know if I take this appointment or I do XYZ thing in my process, I know this is going to immediately change this. Intangibles, like I know I need to work on my skill level when it comes to talking with having like a sales conversation, right? How to have a normal conversation. I need to work on that skill level. So I'm gonna go role play. I'm gonna go through my training portal or my routines and begin working on that in the background. So I think when you have that and you know you're moving forward every week and you can also see the tangible things that you hit, it gives you like a dopamine rush. So you know you're heading in the right direction, and it keeps that ball moving forward.
Yeah, right
It
on.
reminds me of the thing you said earlier about, the morning routines. I don't have to have a dialed in routine to be able to make, execute money making tasks. It reminded me of like Elon Musk. We were talking about him earlier, and I think at one point he was working like 20 hours a day, sleeping on his office floor. So like the balance image there is not very great. Like if you're executing toward a specific goal, you kind of have to like sacrifice to that goal, and the
Yeah.
balance isn't going to be there. And the people that really hit the echelon of existence, and at least from what I've seen, I'm not a historian or whatever, but from what I've seen on documentaries and stuff, it seems like their life is very unbalanced toward that one thing, almost to where they lose themselves a little bit to that thing. Like Connor says, you got to lose yourself to this craft. But when
Yeah.
when I'm able to give my wife this and my mom this, it'll be worth it. Um,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it also reminded me of something that Mike Tyson said, like everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face, right? And I think
Hmm.
for a lot of people, they try to build these routines before they do X, like you said, because it's almost like a belief builder. Like, okay, I did the special, like I wore the special underwear. Now I can really succeed here, because I had the
Yeah.
special ritual that I did or
The
whatever.
special
Not that
sauce.
everybody's like that, but
Yeah.
a lot of people function like that. So to maintain, basically, I think what you just said is evidence that you have a high belief, like a high, however you want to say that, like your belief in yourself is very high. So how do you sustain that if you're experiencing burnout or extreme setback? What is that process like for you? I'm curious.
I personally don't believe in burnout. Burnout in my mind is you feeling like you're not heading towards where you want to as quickly as you'd like. Right. Burnout in my mind is, um, I'll give you an example. Uh, I like to think of like a fat German kid who's running towards like an ice cream truck, right? because of the ice cream, he's probably going to want to run as fast as he can because he wants to get to his goal. Now, he
Mhm.
might get tired. He might feel like he wants to burn out. It might not be worth it. But I can guarantee if he's running out of a burning building, he's probably going to run twice as fast and not think about how tired he is. Right. So I think it's all on perspective. If this would be my advice, if you're feeling like burnt out, I would just get really clear, sit down for like a few hours, go to a coffee shop and be like, okay, where do I want to be? Why do I want to be there? Obviously, how far off do I feel I am from that? Right. And with my current strategy, how likely is it I'm going to get there with the time frame I want? Most people who begin to encounter burnout, they know where they want to be, but they have no time frame. So it's a dream, it's not a goal.
Do you deal with a
Which
lot of
causes
anxiety,
burnout.
or are you more detached? Because I want to ask a question that leads into that.
Um, no, I know I used to be pretty anxious when I would wake up. Um, actually, yeah, so me personally, I used to have a lot of like anxiety when I would wake up every day because I would be nervous and I want to hurry up and
Mhm.
get where I want to be at. But I don't know if I was doing the right things necessary to get a job, to learn the skills I needed to get to my income, and I had things I had to pay off, right? So there was definitely a point in my life where I was like, frick, man. I was like, I gotta do something. I just don't know what to do. Maybe I should change up my strategy. Getting tired of this. Right. Um, but if I was to speak to anybody that was kind of in that same situation, um, you need like a mentor, you need somebody who's been at where you're at, start reaching out, start networking. I've just noticed a lot of people are fearful to reach out to somebody else who can actually help them, right? I think it's not like a pride, but it's like an ego thing in a lot of ways. A lot
Sure.
of young guys I've chatted with personally, but you can either let that fear and ego constrict you and hold you in anxiety, right? Or you can reach out and be like, hey man,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what I'm doing. I know where I want to be. How do I do it? What do I have to do? And then just take the steps necessary, right?
Yeah. Because
Um,
I was
so
gonna say, like, I think that for you,
yeah,
that seems like it's the antidote that allows you to have that I don't feel burnout feeling. Because I know exactly what you're feeling. Like, now that I think about it, last night I stayed up till like 2 a.m. working on a stupid piece of content that I couldn't get right because I manage an influencing account or
was it
whatever.
worth it
But
to you?
uh, yeah, but I didn't even think
Yeah.
about burnout. That's the thing, is like I was just like so obsessed with like getting this
Mm-hmm.
done that I
Yeah.
was just like, and I've been doing this sustained for like a week now of just this one thing making, and I just like care so much about it that it's just like I don't think of it like that. So I think the reason why is because my expectations are, this is for me. I'm not trying to please anybody else, or I'm not held to anybody else's standard. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. Fuck
Yeah.
it. So I think there's a level of detachment that you have that
Mhm.
helps with the burnout thing, is like when
Well,
you're
now
putting your pedal to the metal.
didn't used to. Yeah.
Yeah, put your pedal to
No.
the metal for you, like for your reasons. Like, fuck it, let's see what life can give us, what life has to offer before
Yeah.
we die, rather than like I have to put my foot to the pedal, because you don't, right? Like you could live a complacent, fulfilled life just being a normal
Yeah.
person with a family and a job that provides. But does that make sense, or am I just like speaking
Makes sense. Most people
foo-foo?
have expectations. Most people have other people's goals, not their actual goals, right? There's a lot of people that
Mhm.
are like, oh, I want to be at this income. It's like, no, no, no. They want to be at that income. Where do you want to be at? Oh, some people are genuinely happy. That's where they're at. But they let others' goals creep into their expectations and what they feel their goals should be. So then they're basically they're just chasing like a dust cloud, like a golden dust cloud, right?
By the way, gentlemen, we hit time a while ago, and
Oh,
yeah,
am I
no,
blabbering?
no, this has been a masterclass, dude. Thank you. There's been a lot of clarity, a lot of stuff that I needed to hear again. And I'm pretty sure our audience is going to appreciate just the breakdown so they can be reminded of these things and how important it is, especially with having that connection with the future self towards one's goal, right? And just, building those habits that take you there. So
Mhm.
that's the takeaway that I'm walking away with today. And Wesley, I'm going to hand it over to you, buddy.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I think I'll leave it there and just yeah, I think a lot of the vibe I'm getting from Jordan is he doesn't have, I mean, I don't, it's not like I'm a psycho fucking whatever, but he seems to just be very like, he's like almost play like, what's that quote, Marco, about one of the philosophers was talking about when you learn how to be playful with life or with your goals or something, that's where you really gain mastery. And it seems
Jordan,
like
yeah.
Jordan is, yeah, he's kind of in that zone right now where he's like, it's not, he doesn't have this intensity and this pressure behind him to do something. Like a lot of people in the space, when they get in here, they either got to prove it to themselves or their parents or their friends or the person that they work with because it's their boss. But once you hit a couple like setbacks or you get there, like Jordan said, and then you realize, oh, okay, this is just who I am. Then it becomes a game about you. And it's just an inner game at that point of like just being better, a better version of you. And who gives a shit what happens? It's just like you just have fun with that game and it becomes an obsession. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Jordan, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's been another episode of The Process. Definitely, guys, if you've gotten some value from this episode, drop a comment, and this will be on YouTube. So like, share, and all that good stuff. We will catch you next time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.